Yeah, two jump to mind. So the earlier part of my career was I did, operations, infrastructure based manufacturing and operations. So I was a plant supervisor, plant manager. So again, I was pretty much never in a formal PMO setting, but pretty much de facto project management manager with everything that I did. So two projects that really come to mind is one that I ran on one of our manufacturing units, which was our highest throughput. Basically, it was almost like Coca-Cola, right? Everything that came off the line was sold. If I wasn't able to get things off the line quick enough, or I had delays, or product wasn't available, my competitor, Pepsi in this case, right, that would be what was bought. If my product wasn't on the shelf, it wasn't getting sold, right? So you have real dollars worth of inventory that you can potentially impact an organization. So we worked on a project that had a 25% throughput increase. So this was a train. It was basically I had one vessel that did a makeup that took about 4 hours. I had a concentration and cool step which took 24, and then my pack out took about 2 shifts. Right. So we can tell that our bottleneck was that middle unit, right? So one of the things we came up with was we would do the makeup and we would wind up basically starting the concentration and cool and then move it into the next vessel, shaved about 8 hours off that concentration in that second vessel, level loaded it with the back vessel, and boom, we were able to increase throughput by 25% and brought in a couple of $1 million a year for the company. So it was a fantastic project. But again, it's a project. That's exactly what it was. So the two things for us that were critical was scheduling and timing, right? Because again, I had now a stainless steel train with 3 units and a pack out station. I was really doing piping modification. I was replacing some of the units in some time frame. Right, going back to my earlier quote, my earlier point is that if I was down for any extended period of time that I didn't realize that we were going to be down, or it was unplanned downtime, and that was lost product, that's lost sales for the company, right? So there was tremendous amount of pressure to really have that scheduling coincide so that when piping was getting done, I was installing units, I had my quality folks doing checks, we were doing computer system validations and all types of things like that. We wanted to avoid those prolonged shutdowns. And then we'll get into this a little bit more, but one of the bigger things was communication and accountability, right? So it's, again, going back to having that plan, everybody knowing their role, everybody knowing what needs to be done, when it needs to be done. It's having that line of communication and it's having that accountability. If my mechanic, calls me and says, "Hey, I can't come and replace those pipes today because I had somebody call out." Well, you need to get somebody in to get it done, right? We talked about this. We have scenario plans. You have X, Y, and Z guys qualified. Get one in to bring it in, right? So we have those backup plans. So while it is that cross-functional communication, there also is that communication, up and down, right? So communication to the primary stakeholders, to the executives in the company, all these types of things have to do with project management, right? Because again, as much as you can prevent those prolonged shutdowns, a couple of times it did happen, and we were down, a half a shift, and again, we had to wind up to communicate that to folks. Sometimes the message was, here's how we're going to make it up, and sometimes the message is, this is what the lost revenue is going to be. But it's always about that communication. Second one was a quicker project, and I'll go through it a little bit more quickly. But basically, when I at the a byproduct of my production was something called mother liquors, which contained product in them. It was kind of the excess that came out, but it also contained product. So every time I had a sewer these, I was literally throwing money right down the drain. So I was able to capture about $100,000 in annual cost savings by spending $40,000 to really revamp some obsolete piping and tanks that I had on another side of the unit. We had these 8 tanks sitting idle for the better part of 10 years, when all they needed was a little bit of piping to be installed to them, a little bit of piping to be replaced because it was corroded and couldn't non-usable anymore. And then we needed to add some heating to that unit and to all of the units plus the storage facility where they were. So again, we spent about 40, 50 grand to save $100,000 of annual savings of not having to sewer things down the drain. So yeah, I've been in operations for a long time. Those are really just two examples of how a little bit of foresight and planning and some project management can really recognize revenue and avoid again sewering money down the drain for an organization.